morning, everyone. Let's dive in. I'll share my screen. Welcome to Flow Chaser Monday. It's a presentation that I give every Monday in 2026 at 6 a.m. here in the Pacific Northwest. And the whole goal of this about 30-minute presentation is to get you really thinking about how you're engaging with flow during the work week. And that's why we do it on Monday. And we do it in the morning because this is when I feel the most on. So I'll talk a little bit about like what to expect, a brief about me because I do believe that it is like the person delivering the information, the theory that you kind of want to like know where they're coming from in the background. So just about that. I also talk about burnout before I talk about the flow because if you're looking for the perfect example of the type of experience that you don't want to have, it's burnout. And flow really becomes this beautiful antidote, which I'll talk more about later. All right. And then we'll get into this wonderful discussion about flow, the mechanics of it, some ways to like drop into it, and what I believe is like the underlying theory on like how to access it, which is why we're all here. I have nothing to sell you. This is just a honestly an exercise in accessing the flow state myself, doing something repetitively. I was thinking like what is something I could talk about over and over again to really work on my presentation skills, and of course it was about flow. So again, this is about like a 30-minute lecture. The only time I've been able to do it in 20 minutes was last week, and that was because I was sick. I was very motivated to get that done. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about who I am. I'm really great cable knitter. I knit that. But what I want to mention is that I've been a business owner for the last 11 years and working as a creative, as somebody who pays my own bills with my like creative output, and as somebody who has these like very inconsistent energy patterns. Like, sometimes you're just like on, you're with it, and sometimes I'm just like in full potato mode, and hadn't really felt in the past like I could access either of those states fluidly. It was more like just kind of like what I would default into as a result of burnout. I'm also somebody who has a lot of personal and professional goals. I like to do not necessarily a goal sheet, but like a bingo card full of goals every year. And it's just, kind of like North Lights, things to work on. And I believe that that's important because it shows that maybe like you, I'm somebody who really engages with life and like the questions of life, and I want to try new things and I really want to grow and stretch myself. And then I am consistently hitting against this wall of like capacity and burnout, and studying flow both on like a spiritual and a just how the physics of it works is something that's been very helpful to me. So that's why I'm into it. Let's talk about burnout. Burnout seems to always start with a high capacity person. And I've so many people that I've worked with have experienced maybe like a significant burnout recently, but a lot of people have like these patterns of burnout and in different parts of their life. So, burnout with work is usually what I'm talking about. They get exhausted because it starts with high capacity. They're able to do something, they're able to perform, produce. Um, to create something like a feeling in another person. Like maybe they're a really talented musician, and so there that like comes the capacity comes natural to them. They are then praised for it, and if that is out of alignment with the thing that they actually want to do and create and produce, then you get this disconnect. Well, I'm really rewarded for doing this, but I really want to do that, and that is like the grounds for burnout, because there is another thing that your life force, your energy, and your creation wants to go towards, but you keep on diverting it to the thing that maybe feels safe, like the golden handcuffs. And hopefully this is enough of like a brief intro into like how I think about burnout for you to be like, okay, I can agree that the disconnect is happening because of the capacity of a person is then praised and compensated for, and then they over prioritize doing the thing that gets the praise or the compensation, and that's what just leads to like not good feelings, not good vibes. There's not enough time for anything. It's just like this scarcity in all the things. It's like if you don't have enough time to do the thing that you really crave and enjoy and find meaningful, then our whole energy just kind of shrinks down to match that. And I believe that that is attached to the mechanisms of flow, which I'll describe later. Um, and all of this is incredibly painful. And so what happens is it leads to like unconscious behavior. If consciously we are aware that, ouch, this hurts, then unconsciously we try to do all these things so that we don't feel like how much that hurts. My unconscious behaviors were just like doom scrolling and like avoidant, like they just shut down is my, and that's like a the final pattern of burnout is shutdown. All right, bummer. It's not so fun. Now I get to go into the fun part because I believe the antidote towards burnout is finding more flow, chasing flow. Burnout and goals, they work really nicely together because burnout cares about the production, the thing that you can produce. It doesn't inherently, it almost opposes you doing what you actually feel like doing. Chasing flow is the opposite, and we'll get into that. We'll also talk about the neurological response that your body has when it is presented with the challenges and the dynamics of flow. I'll talk about how to chase flow, creativity and adaptability, both as hallmarks of what being in the flow is like and as a mechanism to like get into it more. Radical self acceptance and alignment, and then alignment as a flow trigger. Yeah, let's get into it. All right. I have been giving this presentation like 31 times, and I finally corrected the spelling of dysregulation zone. You're welcome. But this is how I conceptualize like what is flow? What is the potentiality of flow? When are we going into flow? Like, what are we seeing? And I want you to think about flow activities. I would love for you to think about your own, like the last time that you got into that like time melody space. You were watching something, maybe you were watching like a soccer match, or you were at like a recital performance, or you watched an amazing movie. It could be like the things that you observe that get you into the flow state. You're just completely captivated. It could also be you're in the flow state by your own effort. Like you were out hiking and it was really challenging, and you just got into that zone where it was like you and the mountain, and there you go. Like think about your own example of flow. And I'm going to kind of share with what I think is actually happening there. So no matter if it's happening to you or you're like actively engaged in the thing that's going on, we all have the center of our comfort zone. And at the center of our comfort zone, there's no questions. Everything is known. It's like the safety and security, the absolute knowledge that like nothing is bad is happening to you right now. That is like nothing feels wrong, like or out of sorts. You are at the center of your comfort zone. Now, your access to the center of the comfort zone is really based on a lot of different factors, but we can all conceptualize that, like, we all have this internal part of ourself, no matter how small it is, that's just absolutely secure and safe, and it doesn't question things. And maybe some of us are saying, like, snooze fest, boring, and they're already trying to, like, actively work towards the more outer parts of their comfort zone. And when we start to leave these outer parts of our comfort zone, it's like when questions start to present themselves. I don't know what will happen. What if I do? What if they? What if this environment changes? There's a lot more questions towards the outer parts of our comfort zone. And I believe that when those questions are presented, that becomes the playground of flow, like where flow can happen. Because on the inside of our comfort zone, there's nothing unknown. Now, towards the inside of a flow state, there's a lot that's unknown. And this happens all the way until we find dysregulation. And dysregulation can be small, like I have an itch that pulls my focus. I'm no longer completely absorbed and focused on what I'm doing. The flow state stops and we're on to something else. It could also mean that you are just so overwhelmed by the challenges presented in this flow state that now all of your energy needs to go back into regulating yourself back towards the comfort zone, kind of like that game over. And this is just like a natural cycle. And so you'll fluctuate between, you know, total comfort to total discomfort within these flow states, just at a natural pace. What's really cool is that during this, when we start to get towards the outer part of our comfort zone, and so you might be able to come to the conclusion that if you were to get to the part of life for you that is less known, what will happen, that is where creativity exists and the flow state exists. So, whatever that means to your brain, like that is the hack. It's moving out of the place where everything is known and comfortable into the places where there's more of a field of potentiality. There's more potential for things that you don't know what will happen to happen, and then that's where the possibility of like your solution, your goal, the things exist in that potentiality as we move outside of our comfort zone. And the really cool thing is that our bodies are primed for this. They evolutionarily we're created to respond to the environment around us. And as an act of moving out of our comfort zone, the body provides this neurotransmitter surge of chemicals. And what's really fascinating is that these neurotransmitter that are surging through us as a result, as a response of our environment or what we're engaging in, what we're doing, the flow state that we're in, it's providing a lot of chemicals that are very similar to the street drugs that people are buying, right? So we're getting dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphins, and anandamines. The result of that is that our brain is re-architecturing itself in order to respond to the task, the creativity, the unknown of like what could happen, the potentiality of life, which is just so fascinating. And as a result, this prefrontal cortex, which if you are an ADHD or like myself, you know that like that can be a really tricky area, like time bendiness. That's something that's like very natural. Like we're horrible at like quantifying or estimating how much time something is, and now we're just so judgmental about like the creative process, like this is good, that is bad. That is a lot of what's happening in the prefrontal cortex. And when you get this neurotransmitter surge as a result from your what you're doing in your life and in your environment and in your brain, you're getting that to quiet down, which feels really great. Like when the inner critic steps out of the room and just, these free flowing creativities response to ideas is happening. That is why we can feel so exhilarated and so refreshed by the flow state. And the cool thing is that by just being in this flow state, by finding what by really following our curiosities and our desires and our passions to like go into these more altered states just by nature of what we're doing, we're actually getting a larger dosage of these neurotransmitters than you could ever assume to come out alive from taking like the street equivalent value, and your brain is just producing this naturally. And when it's done this way, it's actually been shown to be very like neuroprotective for the brain to have these like the response and then the natural transitions in that your brain makes to this. So it's just it's cool, it's beneficial, it feels great. You're not gonna OD on the flow state. It's just like it's made for you. I mean, maybe you get like a little bit of like an adrenaline rush from all this and um, a little less critical thinking, which can be dangerous, of course. But just fascinating how the brain and the body is responding to your environment. So, how do you chase flow? And I've thought about so many different ways because it's so individualistic. Like the things that I really find fascinating, engaging with are my hacks into the flow state. Like the parts of work that I really enjoy and I wrestle with. And there's like the creating of something unknown. But that's not like a universal entrance into the flow state, not even for myself sometimes. And the best way of like a universal hack really touches on spirituality. And that is where what I found in Bashar's 5-step formula. And Bashar is a channeled intelligence by Dara Anka. And you can go watch, there's a plethora of readily available free YouTube videos of these channeled works from like this higher intelligence. And if that's all just spiritual mumbo jumbo, let the evidence be like its own. Here are Bashar's 5 steps, which I believe is the best formula for getting into the flow state. All right. Bashar's the formula. One, act on passion first. This flies in the face of the conventional wisdom of productivity. Like, if you don't do the thing, then you won't get the results. It's not the same way of thinking about your work, your productivity, or even how you're running your personal life. To act on passion first still feels extremely selfish and unreliable for a lot of people. And what I have really discovered in the amount of attention and focus that I've put into studying flow is that this is actually like the juice. When you can trust that wherever your passion and excitement lands, that it will work out into this like greater landscape of how things are taken care of. Like if I'm acting on passion first, I'm never going to feel passionate about like cleaning the bathrooms, but they need to get done. And it's like trusting that there will be a natural excitement for doing a thing as you practice the muscle of really acting on passion first. Like maybe we need to experiment more. And if I was meeting with somebody who was in the throes of burnout, I would say act on passion first at least once a day. Once a day, when you get an inkling to go sit down and knit a pattern that you've been curious about, and it just feels maybe selfish or delusional, maybe you have a lot of other things going on, but you just believe that by acting on passion first, you just take one step. And even if you don't get into a full flow or see the immediate value of that, the value is in the practice because this is how you find your way out of burnout. You start to rewrite that script of what you are allowed to do, what you are allowed to feel, how you pursue your goals and objectives as a person. And when you trust that flow is the biological change that you need for like life fulfillment as well. Okay, so that's why practicing the acting on passion first is something that a lot of us need to work on. But this is such a noble and important goal. And when you can really trust that, things start there becomes more opportunities for things to just work out is what I've found. So you are acting on your desire, you're acting on your passion, and you're going as far until the excitement wanes. Now, on my graph, that's when we reach the dysregulation zone, right? And any reason that we could, as a natural process. It's just I'm less excited about this, or something else looks more exciting. Act as far until the excitement wanes. Three, act on passion without assumption of outcome. What this means is that when we are working on a goal, we have an objective, right? And as we are going along, we're constantly looking, is this on target? Is this not? I mean, how else are we going to navigate to the destination, to the goal? What this is saying is that as you are acting on your passion, as things come up, don't assume that the things that come up are going to necessarily mean, oh, that means this is going to come out great, perfect. It's all, golden rose and rainbows ahead. And it's also not assuming that because something comes up in that flow state and the thing that you are working on, that it's going to, it's ruined, it's bad, it's, oh, well, that's not going to work out. Act on passion without assumption of outcome. I have been knitting this, we call them stash buster sweaters. So I had a bunch of like random yarn, and I've been knitting this beautiful color worked Japanese knitting pattern. And it's gorgeous. But I've knit it an entire time before, and I've given away the sweater because I just didn't like the fit of it. And so this time I've reknit it to about here and then ripped it all out. And then recently have just been trying to to get this right. But when I'm working on it, when I'm ripping it out, I'm not assuming that the next time it's going to work and I'm going to knit the full sweater and it's going to fit perfectly. I am engaging with the process. And even if I have to rip out, I'm not assuming that the next one is going to be perfect or the next one is going to be wrecked. I'm just acting on my passion. So, and then four, no matter what manifests, stay in the positive state. So when you notice that there's an error, just assume the assumption is that, like, okay, this is all working out. It's all part of the process of making this handmade garment. Not, you can stay in this flow state for longer if the things that happen in it don't dysregulate you, where then all of your energy and focus needs to go on calming your or regulating yourself. So no matter what happens, right? What is created, just stay in a positive state. This is exactly what needs to happen. This is exactly what needs to be made. Those are some of the things that I need to tell myself to like soothe. Like you get, um, somebody will call and say, "Oh, I hate that," or "That's not going to work because of this." Great. I have more information now. I'm going to use that information to build a better product, to build a better thing. This is the optimism that is needed to really help regulate yourself when you're going after these big goals. Tell me a circumstance where you're going after something big and you are not being challenged. What this formula would say is that every challenge that you get, great, this is exactly what needs to happen. There's this motto that I have, if it's on your plate, you ordered it. As a result of me being this goal chaser, I assume that there are going to be challenges that present themselves just because I am like pursuing the thing. I'm going after the thing, and that is such a beautiful um like mechanism and part of the flow state, or just being really growth oriented, right? Really growth minded. Like that is the thing. And just being hopelessly optimistic about like this is exactly what it needs to be. This is happening because it needs to happen. Those are the types of things that really help just stay in it for long enough to have that creative problem solving, that curiosity. All right. And then examine your beliefs and release fears. The things that you go after, the things that you pursue, your intellectual goals, your physical goals, the challenges that you take on, you are picking those because there is like a way that you have described the universe or the world to work that you are working on. And part of like chasing after these goals is that we release the fears. We realize that we are strong enough, that we are brave enough, that we are creative enough, that we are beautiful enough, that we are magnetic enough, in order that we are worthy of having these good things happen to us or having these things manifested and created. And so part of the process is that you are going to encounter things that scare the shit out of you. And that part of this whole thing is that thank goodness that you're able to directly trigger it because now you can release those fears. You know that you do not die when you give a 5,000 person presentation because you've actually done it. And how many fears have you released to get into that arena to like do that thing? It's such a beautiful way of we have these goals to get us to the fears that we have and realize that we can re-examine our relationship to them, that they don't hold the concrete firmness of like universal law that maybe we felt when we were like first embarking on the journey. This is why I feel that Bashar's The Formula is the best way to get into the flow state. And that is because of like, again, the conceptual model that I have for the flow. If you think about this arrow in the middle, that's like the field of potentiality for flow. So Bashar's number one, which is act on passion first, it is the questions that excite you to move further and further away from your comfort zone. What are you curious about? What do you have either like a calm curiosity about or a fiery passion to discover? What are you curious about? Like, I design a lot of websites and businesses just from talking with a business owner and talking about like how they see their industry and their service and how it um, creates an option in the marketplace that like didn't exist anymore. And then I'm able to like take that energy and then create something that's like a business brand and then a business brochure website. Like that is my creative creation. Like I materialize something from ideas into something that's like physical. And so my area of potentiality is like, what would it look like if this? What would it look like to express this and this? And that's really where I play. And that's like where my passion is. For you, it could be something else, but whatever it is, whatever you're curious about is a really good indicator of a place where you could find a really great flow. And then dysregulation. I'm going to tell you a story about when I was in like full dorsal vagal shutdown. That means that like 20 hours out of a day, I was in bed, maybe staring up at the ceiling or looking out the window, just complete exhaustion and had a lack of focus or attention. I maybe had 4 hours where I had the ability to like do something, and so everything would send me into dysregulation. And what I had learned was that this was a very classic burnout symptom because to get to burnout, what I did was ignored the signals of dysregulation when they were early because I needed to override it. I could just get like another cup of coffee. I could take another hit from my vape pen. I could do all these things to manipulate myself to like do more, to produce more. And so I wasn't listening to that dysregulation zone. I was blowing past it and really overriding it. In order for my capacity to go from that limited 4 hours of potential that I had to work or like do life in, I had to actually start listening to the signs that my body of like early signs of dysregulation and just absolutely freaking baby myself. And then I built trust over and over again that I could get into these flow states and not hurt myself, not hurt my body, that I was going to listen when I needed to drink a glass of water, when I was just done, when I needed to like reach out to a friend because I'd been sitting in my office for so long by myself, having all these ideas and creating all these things, but it just felt lonely. All of those little things are part of building the trust that we can slip into this flow state safely without overriding it. So, this dysregulation zone, I feel like, is so important for me to point out that this is your body's natural buffer to protect you and not to blow past it because you can put yourself in in a really scary situation. And dorsal vagal shutdown is not something I would recommend. Doing a lot better now, thank goodness. But when you are in this flow state, something also happens. You are highly creative and adaptive. And that is part of the mechanism that will keep you in a healthy flow state, one that's not abusing your body or harming. I'm talking like you're happy, you're engaged, you want to like keep on going. When you accept a challenge, when you're in the flow state, what that is it removes you further from the inside of your comfort zone because now there's a new set of questions. Well, how are we going to meet the constraints of this challenge, or how are we going to overcome this, or how are we going to do this? You have more questions, and whenever you have more questions, that means you're moving further and further away from your comfort zone into the space of flow. And of course, as you keep on working on something, less and less is known, so something else that comes up will keep you in that flow state for longer and more intensely. Isn't that fun? Like, as a result of taking on the new challenges, not knowing what's going to happen, you are being thrown deeper and deeper into a flow state. So, accepting challenges, not having the assumption of an outcome, but just generally keeping in the positive state that no matter what comes up is like a good thing, is how you can extend and heighten the flow state experience. Theory. It also needs to come down to this feeling that you can act on your passion, that you are able to and confident, and it's the freedom to really go after the things that you find interesting. You know, ADHD has been often described as an interest-based brain, but I think that we are all striving to have this interest based perspective and trusting that the things that we are curious about, that we will be supported for it, which makes it easier to trust the unknown and go into these flow states. And maybe this all comes back to like this socialist democratic objective. But if like everybody had this base level foundation that they could act on their passion first, then we would have more work created in the flow state instead of more work created towards the benefit of burnout, is what I would really anticipate from this like shift. If we can trust that like whoever we are, whatever we're curious about, whatever we're passionate about, is like our mission and our goal and objective of that moment, then we will find more of these flow experiences. And it's that baseline fundamental that, we are worthy of acceptance and support for whatever we find is like we're just curious and passionate about. And yeah, just a fundamental belief in everybody's baseline, comfort and support in order for them to be able to pursue their own flow states. And yeah, it's a radical belief, but I'm all in. Um, and that this actually expands the capacity. Just like listening to my body cues and my brain for not manipulating myself to like stay in a work period for longer than possible, building that trust that you are going to take care of yourself. This expands your capacity to get out of your comfort zone and to take on these challenges or to take on these questions and really enjoy the flow state as a byproduct of you going after the things that you are the most passionate about. I hope that this was a fun and motivational entrance into the week as you think about your work. What flow states are you going to pursue, which often means what questions are you considering? What questions just really light you up? And what are you passionate about? What are you passionate about seeing created? Those are my food for thought for the week. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and I'll see you back here 6 a.m.